On December 10th, 2024, the City Council for Salt Lake City unanimously voted to rezone a portion of the west side of the city. This area will be known as the Power District. Larry H. Miller Group have the blueprint to develop a 95-acre site into a potential MLB stadium and other new amenities surrounding it. The CBA for the MLB expires in 2026, and the league is expected to announce a new expansion city or two. And with this news, Salt Lake City has catapulted themselves to the front of the line. That is where we start our journey, here with the Salt Lake City Gulls, the newest member of the MLB family. Welcome to the series, everybody. Another expansion year here on MLB The Show. And this time around, it will be a lot more tough to start out here in this series. We will start our series with an expansion draft and build this team from the ground up. No real notable prospects, and we will have to put in the work and see if we can build this team up long term into a contender. We will be joining the NL West in this series and trying to compete here, at least just to stay above water in the first couple of seasons. It's going to be rough. But we will be replacing the San Francisco Giants in the division, but the Giants will be moving to the AL West, and they will be replacing the Athletics. So the Giants will still remain here, but we'll just go into the toughest division in all of baseball. So here we go. Let's start out our expansion draft and build this organization up. But first, some ground rules. All drafted players must be 71 overall or below. That means we can't take any star players from other teams, and we can draft only one B potential player. The rest of the players must be C potential or less, I guess, and then one drafted player per team. So we can only select one guy per team. And then we must select at least two players making over $10 million. So that means we have to probably take a big financial burden in the first couple of years. And we'll see how this goes, as we have to stay away from top 5 prospects in an organization. So with our number 1 overall pick, we go to the Arizona Diamondbacks, who is going to be a big rival for us in this series, and we will select Alek Thomas as our 1B potential exception here in this expansion draft. He is 24 years of age. He was once a top 50 prospect in all of baseball, and after 3 MLB seasons, I think Alek Thomas may be looking for a new start and really could be the face of this franchise in the first couple of seasons. I think he has a lot of potential still. Obviously, the B potential is the big draw, and he's only 24 years old. Now, he has pretty much lost his position in the outfield with the Diamondbacks due to guys like Corbin Carroll coming up in the organization, and I think that other guys have kind of passed him up. You can just see, though, his average has never been above 231, which is pretty bad, to be honest, and he's never slugged above 375. I mean, I think he's just been disappointing, but he is under cost control for the next 5 years, so he will be the face of at least our lineup, at least to develop in this first half of the series, probably. Now, our first selection as a pitcher, and maybe one of the youngest pitchers we will have in this draft, Oscar Noah from the Minnesota Twins. Once was a promising pitcher for the Atlanta Braves back in 2021. Really has not really been that guy since that year. Has not been in the MLB the last couple of years. He did have an injury, and that kind of set his career back, but he gets a second chance with us. He's still 26 years old. I think we still have some juice left to squeeze out of him, but he will be the ace of our rotation right now. So let's go around the horn here and go to each position. At catcher, we go to the Pirates and select Henry Davis. Henry Davis is 25 years old. He's young as well. Now, he hasn't been particularly great offensively at the MLB level, but he does have a really strong arm, so I want to really be a good defensive team early in this series, because I think that if we can't produce runs, well, hopefully we can stop them. Now we go to first base and we go to the Yankees. Paul Goldschmidt signed a 1-year contract with the Yankees, and he will be their first baseman this year. So we will select Ben Rice. He's 26 years old. He's a lefty bat. He is 66 overall only in seat potential, but I think he does have some power potential. He has 75 power versus right, and I think that he could potentially be our home run leading candidate here in this lineup. I think he has the potential to be a guy that, like I said, hits around maybe 240, 250, hits maybe 20 home runs. I would be okay with that. Now, we do need a veteran captain in the infield, and that's going to be Chris Taylor, the lifelong Dodger. Now, he fulfills one of the $10+ million contract guys we do have to get. He's owed $30 million in the next 2 years, $15 million a year, and he does almost have 10 years of MLB service time. At shortstop, we really take a kind of a risk here with Daniel Schneemann, and he is actually a really good defensive player, and I'm not really drafting him for his bat. I said this before. I think we should just be a really good defensive team early on because we don't know what we're going to be offensively. His bat isn't too bad, but it's not great either. But I know that strong arm at shortstop is definitely going to help with that 88 arm strength, and we'll see if we end up getting something out of him. At third base, I think I have kind of a low risk, high reward pick here in Brett Baty. Now, looking at Brett Baty, the attributes actually aren't too bad. I wish he was a little faster, but he is 25 years old still. He's had a few seasons where it's been kind of disappointing. He's not hit above 230. He's not slugged above 340. At least in a full season, he's only slugged 327 as his high. So I think this is just kind of a guy that in his mid-20s looking for a fresh start, kind of like Alek Thomas. I think that those two guys can be two young guys we can try to develop and possibly be some good pieces for the now and future. In left field, we go to the already depleted Miami Marlins roster and select Dane Myers. Myers has a couple of years under his belt here at the MLB level. Now, one thing about him is that he has really good hitting attributes. We'll see how he ends up being going into his age 30 season. We go to the outfield again, this time, and select Travis Jankowski, who has really just been a defensive outfielder in his career. He did hit 263 back in 2023, but has never been really a full-time outfielder, and he won't be that with us. He will be a free agent going into season 2, so we'll see if he ends up sticking along just as a depth outfielder, but right now he will be a starter. And then we will select Weston Wilson as more of a utility guy on this roster. Now, one thing with him is that he hit very, very well last season. If you look at his numbers, in 88 at-bats, he hit 284, slugged at 489, and 98 plate appearances. Really, really good numbers there. OPS of 836. I think he's going to be a really important piece, at least in this first couple of years, to be a good bat in the middle of the lineup, and we'll see where he hits. But I like his potential right now as kind of a top of the order bat. We'll see how that goes. Another utility guy we're going to be using, Brett Wisely. He comes over from the San Francisco Giants, and I look at his attributes and they're not bad either. Now, his numbers aren't really great. 252 at bats a year ago, only hit 238, only slugged 345. So we'll see what he ends up being, but I like that he can play every position. And he, is 70 overall, not too bad. And he is 25 years old. Now let's move to the rotation to see the players that we have. And I gotta admit, at least for MLB caliber players, the pool is very small here. So we end up selecting JP France, who has had about 30 starts in his career. I would say he's not bad, but he's also not great. Now, he does have a very nasty 12-6 curveball. That's why he's got that 99 break. And I think he's a guy that we'll have for a couple of years in the rotation, but we don't really have too many more pitchers that are up to par with around 70 overall. Darius Vines is 66. Now, we're selecting him from the Atlanta Braves. You can just see here, not really too much action in 2 seasons. He has about 33 innings under his belt. I think it's all potential at this point. The same goes for Julian Aguilar. I'm pretty sure I'm saying that name wrong. Aguilar. Now, one thing about him and Vines is that their stamina is very low. So there's a potential that these guys could potentially move to the bullpen down the road. We'll see how they do as starters right now. Now, Aguilar is only 23 years old, so he's got a whole lot of growth to do. So who knows what he's going to turn into. And then, like I said, I wanted an older veteran in the infield. I wanted an older veteran in the outfield. And I also want an older veteran in the rotation. So we will just pick up Patrick Corbin out of free agency. Last year, he had a 2 WAR, which is actually pretty surprising at age 34, going into his 35 season here in 2025. And I think that he can be a leader for this rotation in this bullpen. I think that, you know, all young players need somebody to look up to. In the bullpen, we do have some interesting pieces. Aaron Ashby is 70 overall, 26 years old. Now, he did try as a starter back in 2022. That didn't work out too well. His numbers were absolutely horrible. But as a bullpen guy, I would say that he's pretty good. 77 hits per 9 is actually not a bad rating there for a guy that's in his mid-20s. Zach Thompson we get as well. Diego Castillo we get from the Colorado Rockies. Castillo has 77 hits per 9. Now he's 31, so I'm not sure how long he will stick around. Manuel Rodriguez from the Tampa Bay Rays. He's decent as well, 78 hits per 9. And then we will snag Kenta Maeda to fulfill that second $10 million player. Now, the good thing about him is that he's going to be hitting free agency after this season, so that contract will come off of the books. But coming over from Detroit, he did have a decent year last year, not great, but we'll see, you know, how he ends up faring in maybe one of his final years in the MLB, possibly. So let's get into some spring training highlights, because I really needed to get used to this team, see what everybody does well. There's a nice double that time from Henry Davis, who was at the plate. And here is Alec Thomas. I showed a clip of this earlier, and he goes deep in the first spring training game to left field. That one is gone. Only 379, but that's good enough for a home run in the spring to opposite field, and he makes it 3-2. Here is Weston Wilson, who had a really good year with the Phillies last year. He goes deep this time for back-to-back jacks here for the Gulls. And it's going to be a 4-2 lead here in this game. And he goes opposite field also. Now, Wilson, I think, is going to hit, like I said, in the top of the lineup. And we'll see what he ends up being. But we end up losing this game, though, 6-5, as Texas does come back, get a couple runs in the 5th, and then win in extras in the 11th. But I really just want to get a handle on, you know, who's going to really be a guy that we develop, guys that we develop in this first season. So that's what this first, maybe even this second or third year is going to be all about, just developing guys, figuring out who's going to stick around in the long term. We end up signing Montero out of free agency. Cannon Smith-Njigba, that's Jackson Smith-Njigba's big brother. He is available, and he is 25 years old, so we will sign him out of free agency as well. Simone Muzziotti, he's going to sign here in the outfield. He has a little bit of MLB experience, but he's available in free agency and in his mid-20s, 26 years old. Another lefty, though. We have a lot of lefty bats in our lineup, and he will sign him for about $1.2 million. And then Daenerys De La Cruz, he will sign as well. Now, he is only 23 years old. He was sitting in free agency, and he's actually not bad. He will take that like minor league contract, but I think he's going to be our backup catcher here in season number 1. And as a 23-year-old catcher, I think that you kind of have a lot of potential at this point in your career, a lot of growth to do. So here is Julian Aguilar, and he will get a spring training start here versus the Cubs. Here is Nico Horner, who takes him to right center field for his first at-bat of the spring here, as that one is a stand-up double. And I just want to see, you know, what is going to come out of Aguilar. Is he going to be a long reliever? Is he going to be a starter? He is only 23 years old with a lot of potential, but maybe that potential does not grow. So we'll see. Here's the new Cub to the plate, Kyle Tucker, who he gets to swing and miss at that low curve ball. That feels good to get his first strikeout of the spring. That brings up Seiya Suzuki, who hits one deep to left field. This one will be run down by Dane in left field, and that one will get us out of the first. And we move on to the bottom of the ninth here, just getting through some highlights. Here is Simone Muzziotti to the plate, and he will get clunked on the back there in a 7-2 deficit here as we try to get some runs late in this game. Here is Montero, who hangs on one and hits it to left field. That one will get to the wall. It will score one, and we do make it a 7-3 game. Like I said, one of the things here I want to see in the spring is who's going to make the opening day roster, who's going to be guys that we can develop in this series. That's going to be the most important thing here. Here is Ben Rice with the hit to left field. That one will get down in the outfield, and it will score. Actually, it will not score one, but 7-3. Runners on the corners here. No outs. Bottom 9. Do we have some potential for some late game comebacks in this first season? Here is Weston Wilson, who hits this one deep to left field. Will it get there? No, it won't. It knocks off of the bottom of the wall, and it will be a stand-up double, and it is now 7-4. So pretty good comeback here in the ninth. Still no outs here and runners in scoring position as that brings up Daniel Schneemann to the plate. The starting shortstop for us will hit one to the right side. It gets through. We send the runner from second, and he is called out on the tag. The throw was a little offline, but we went to the replay, and look at this. No tag, no tag, no tag until right there where he just gets the shoe. And it's the first out of the inning, but now with 2 outs, that brings up De La Cruz to the plate, and he cannot deliver. So we get a few runs in the ninth inning. It ends up not being enough, and we do end up losing this one. But I do like the heart of this team in this game, but we'll see exactly what that amounts to this season. I don't see a ton of wins on the schedule, but hey, we got to develop our guys and do the best we can here in season 1. One guy I hope to develop here is Henry Davis, a very young catcher. He's 2 for 3 in this one. He hits a ground ball to short. That one will be a double play, but I think Henry Davis does have a bright future with us, and I like the idea of having a young catcher right away. So now 2 outs here in the top of the ninth inning, as here's Montero who gets one right down the middle, and he fouls that one off. That was his pitch. Good timing and everything, but now down 1. Last batter of the game, 3-2 pitch, 2 outs. He hits one hard to the left side, and it will just be a hard ground ball as Emmanuel Clase ends up with the save here in the spring, and the Gulls cannot win this one late, as we'll see some more spring training highlights in this one. Here is a situation here for Diego Castillo, a unique one, because just as bad as we need to come back in games, we need to be able to get out of jams late in games as well. So I'm really looking for a closing pitcher as well. Castillo we're trying out here, and he gives one up to the left side. That one gets through the infield, and the throw home will not be in time. Castillo could not get out of that one, and the Texas Rangers take the 3-2 lead, as they do eventually load up the bases as well, as that brings up Jock Peterson to the plate, and a fastball over the middle of the plate. It's actually a changeup, and Peterson goes to opposite field, and what was a tie ball game is now a 7-2 ball game. Well, I'm not sure if Castillo will be the closer going into season 1, but here is De La Cruz here. I want to see some of our young catchers play early on in the spring. That one will be a hit to center field. That pitch was right down the middle, and De La Cruz did not make a mistake with that pitch. But now bottom 9, 8-2 game, 2 outs. Here is a nice hit by Chris Taylor, the veteran. That one is bowled by the left fielder. It will advance the runner over to third. And some more late inning heroics here for this Gulls lineup, as that brings up Daniel Schneemann to the plate. He turns on one, and that one will get down in the gap. I kind of like the ball physics here in MLB The Show 25. I've seen a variety of hits, by the way, and that one is kind of a new one. It looked like he had good timing on that pitch, but it just flares out into right center, as that brings up Henry Davis. Here's another one that might drop in, and it does not. What a play by the second baseman, diving backwards, and ends up grabbing that one, and the Rangers hold on for the win. So one last game of highlights here, the Brewers, as we'll be down 2-1 here, top 8. Here is Weston Wilson, chopper to third. Might be a double play, but it's thrown into the outfield, and we do get caught up here. Long throw to third will get the runner advancing, but we do tie the ball game up as Weston Wilson does advance to second on the error. As that brings up Montero again. He hits this one to right field, and it does get down. So just as much as we wanted to see how we would do late in games when it's a close game on the mound, we also want to see that same scenario here at the plate. Montero comes through. He was very late on that, by the way, but just gets enough on it to drive in the run from third, and it ends up being enough. 3-2 here versus the Brewers as Kenta Maeda gets the win, but we do end up finishing spring 10-17. So I mean, I know the record doesn't really matter. We're playing our starters for a lot of it, so I would say that's actually not a bad spring. A couple of guys I want to highlight. Travis Jankowski actually hit pretty well, surprisingly, because he has not been an offensive player in his career. Daenerys De La Cruz hit 385 and Henry Davis hit 329. That's the big reason why I was showing them a lot in the spring, because they were actually hitting the ball pretty well, the two young catchers, so I'm very happy about that. Weston Wilson was maybe one of the more impressive bats too. He slugged 488, which aligned with kind of his numbers from a year ago with the Phillies. So I'm expecting a pretty good year offensively from him, and it looks like he could be hitting third in the lineup, to be honest. But the pitching side of things weren't that pretty. Darius Vines had the lowest whip of any starting pitcher, which is pretty crazy at 137, and we played all of our starters like they would in a normal regular season, so that's not a good sign going in. If you're curious about what we're going to use for our hitting and fielding, we will use timing hitting. We'll use classic pitching, so I want ratings to really matter in this series. That's kind of how I always do it. And then we use auto fielding because I want ratings to matter defensively as well. I don't want to have that, user input there. And then here's kind of the cameras we'll use. Medium for catching or in play on offense and in play on defense. And we will play on Hall of Fame offense and Hall of Fame pitching, just because I like that difficulty. It's just a good balance, especially for what I use for timing, hitting, and classic pitching. And next episode, we will hop into the season opener. So I'm going to be really diving in deep in this series and doing this a little bit different than I have in the past. And I really want to focus on player development, and it's going to be a lot less focus on the MLB here in season 1. Despite next episode really being an MLB heavy episode, I do want to focus on some of the prospects and developing those guys and scouting, because we're going to have to nail this first draft and start this series out right with some prospects. So next episode, we'll get into the start of this series, and I know this is going to be a fun one. I hope you guys will enjoy it, and we will see you next episode. Hit subscribe, hit that like button, stay tuned. Let's get it. Let's go.